And we're back. Welcome back, everybody. Another Tuesday night chat with the Muskrat. And tonight, we're back again with Mr. Ted Ellenbecker. Welcome back, Ted.
Hey, thanks, Roger. Appreciate it. Hi, everybody.
It has been an exciting weekend, man. There's been a lot of fishing going on. Jackie and Zach and I got to fish the Iron Cat Challenge. They had the Mega Bucks going on down in Mississippi. So it was a big weekend for catfishing. That Mega Bucks tournament ended up being, to date, the largest payout catfish tournament that we've ever had. And, that says a lot about the sport and the way that it's heading, getting big money and big sponsors and getting people's eyes on the sport and realizing that, these are sporty fish to catch and they're sought after by a lot of folks now. So, but we'll do a little bragging here in just a little bit. I'm trying to get something this thing to open here. They won't open for me. But we had a really good time. Most of you that have tuned in over the weekend saw that we went up to Sandusky Bay, and it's just a magical place. Ted and I have been talking backstage before the show here got started and about just how crazy that place can be, and it definitely showed out and stood up to its hype, at least for us this weekend. And we had our backs against the wall. We rolled in Saturday morning. Well, Saturday about 10, 11 o'clock, something like that. And the trolling motor wouldn't work. Zach's got a brand new boat, brand new trolling motor, brand new batteries, and something went wrong with the lithium batteries. At least one, we're thinking 2 lithium batteries went down on us. Now, this is something interesting. The new Minn Kota Terrova Quest trolling motors can actually run on 2 batteries instead of 3. So he's got a 36-volt system. But this Terrova is set up to where if you do have a battery down or you need to go down to 2 batteries, you can change it and run it as a 24-volt system. It won't go down to 12, but it'll do 24 or 36 volt on that new Quest. And so we mixed up the batteries and got everything hooked back up and got it set up for a 24-volt system. Still wouldn't work. So uncharacteristic of us and against everything inside of us, we fished all day on anchor. I wonder if that's Rusty.
I'm going to tell on you, Roger. Don't feel bad for him, everybody that's watching here, because he told me he got wore out, and I told him I didn't feel too bad about that.
we were wore out. Hey, real quick, talking about the Mega Bucks tournament. This is River Rat Catfishing. Our brother Rusty Moorfield over there. I think he finished in 10th place. And nice. So he has been a big time tournament angler and a good friend of mine for a long time now. But man, this last year, he came to the se4 tournament and fished against us and Zach and stuff. And we had a little bit of camaraderie and inside joke going. He said he was winning that boat and giving it to his dad. Zach ends up winning the boat. Do you know that he goes on to the next se4 tournament, which is a crappie tournament, which him and his dad fish crappie big time too. He wins the se4 at the crappie tournament instead. Wins the se4 boat this year and then goes down to Mega Bucks and shows up with walks out of there with 10th place, which I believe I thought it was $5,000, which is no chump change. But so congratulations, Rusty, man. Yeah. Very proud of you, buddy. Before I get going here too far, I'll circle back and say hello to some folks. We had John Boys in the house first thing this morning, or first thing this afternoon, this evening. I don't know what time it is.
Doesn't matter.
We got Lisa Burrito Catfishing Ladies in the house. Jackie is in the other room spying on me, so I got to behave. We got Brandon Enix right there, Catfishing Dreams. What's up, buddy? Randy, old gray-haired Swain. It's double teaming on us in here. Catch fish with us. They were up on Sandusky Bay as well. They was giving us a run for our money too. And actually, a lot of people stayed in that a lot longer than I expected. I was really worried about the fishing not catching. Those guys on the Potomac was putting a lot of fish. and some good size fish in the boat. But when it came down to the final minutes, we squeaked by with a win. So, but a win's a win. We'll take it. Mike Irvin's in the house. Welcome in, buddy. Let's see who else we got. Everybody's saying hello. Let's see. Pontoon Jody's in the house. Jody, welcome in. Thanks for stopping by.
Hey, Jody.
Let's see. There's Miss V. So we got, I'm guessing Chris is on the Catch Fish With Us page, and V says, I'll do my own thing. There's Uncle Lou's in the house saying hello to the Rat and Ted. Uncle Lou. Let's see. There we go. Yeah, he confirmed. They said they busted their butts for it, but and they took home $5K. There we go. Mr. Creole Catfishing representing the Muskrat Adventures Tuesday night show down there on the Mississippi. I talked to Jeremy a little bit, and, everybody walks away wishing they had won. Everybody wished that they had taken it all. But at the end of the day, to just go down and be a part of that event and fish with some of the people that you got to fish with and some of your idols. And I guarantee you learned a lot in just a few days down there. And just the weigh in being a big spectacle like it was and stuff. Once you put it all together, man, it's a win regardless of where you placed. And so I was proud of Jeremy and the boys down there just showing up and getting it done. So he had trouble too. His trolling motor went down on him while they were down there in the event. So mechanical problems, man. War Pig's in the house. What's up, buddy? Thanks for stopping in. Mike Greenwell's here as well. Let's see if I can get down the bottom of the list here. Get things kicked off and rock and roll. Greg Burgess is here as well. Thank you guys for stopping in. Jeff Beal. Yes, Roger. The Swains are double teaming up in here. There you go. Appreciate you guys. Angling with Andy, with Jello. What's up, buddy? Paul Evanston's in the house. All right. War Pig says, I just donate. He just shows up to tournaments and donates money. Hey.
I understand that.
some days are like that. We've actually, last few tournaments, we've actually not done too bad. We placed in the money last few tournaments. So we're doing something right. We're just getting lucky. We'll take luck. I'll take luck over good any day. Kevin Fish is in the house. What's up, Kevin? Thanks for stopping in. Well, guys, we got an interesting one for you tonight. And I'm kind of excited about this one, to be honest. The Flathead talk last week got me pretty pumped up. Jackie and I have been sitting there talking about flathead fishing for a week now. She's got me all booked up, wanting to go do this and go do that. So it's just a matter of time before we get out there and start putting some bait and putting some techniques together. There you go, Jeremy. Finished 57 out of 97 boats. Not bad for my first tournament ever. Well, I'll tell you this much, Jeremy. Seeing and hearing a lot about what happened down there. There were a lot of boats. A lot of folks didn't catch a fish. So, showing up and putting the work in, man, you guys be proud of yourselves. Hold your heads up. That's a good job. You finished top 50% of the field. You did better than half of them. I want to do tournaments, but I need a partner. Well, I see the way you treat James, so I'm not sure you're going to have a long list of volunteers. No, I'm just playing. Jody knows I got a lot of respect for Jody and what she does, and always have. She's no different than the rest of us. She has a pure desire to go out and chase fish, and she doesn't care what she's got to do it, day or night, catching the bait herself, fishing by herself. She just loves to go out and enjoy the sport of catfishing. So the fact that she's a girl means nothing to me. It doesn't. She just like the rest of us. She just likes to fish. There you go,
she
V.
does pretty good too. She
does. She does a great job.
Yeah.
I tease her sometimes, but she does she puts big fish in a boat, and people can. I don't really hear anybody saying anything about it, honestly, but people can think this, that, or the other, but when it comes down to it, somebody's consistently putting fish in a boat. They know what they're doing.
Yep.
Or at least, this is America. You could fake it till you make it if you don't know what you're doing.
Yep.
All right, let's do it. I want to. Chris doesn't. Yeah, V is actually talking about she wants to get into tournament fishing, but Uh, Chris, her husband, does not. Oh, okay. I got it to load up. Here we go. All right. Ted, if you want,
Yep.
I'll start out with that first slide that you sent me, that
Okay.
first photo. And you can kind of
Okay.
start out talking about that, and then we'll go right on into the slideshow. So without
That'll work.
further ado, we will get this thing kicked off. And Ted, she is all yours once I find the right click. Here we go. There we go.
There it is. Okay. Yeah, we're doing a channel cat seminar tonight. And because it's a channel cat seminar, and you know, all these species are different, the blues, the channels, and the flatheads. Channels a lot of times are referred to by game and fish people as a swimming tongue. And quite honestly, they are. They have an extremely high sense of, if you want to call it smell or taste, either way. But I want to kind of emphasize how important scent can be to you, and not necessarily as an attractant either, but also something you should watch out for when you're filling the boat up with gas with these fish, or any fish actually. Don't be getting gas on your hands. Don't be stepping in gas puddles, oil. If you smoke, handle your bait with the other hand. That kind of thing. It makes a difference. Now I know, you know, this is kind of cutting straws here, you know, making it kind of thin, 1/10 of a second thing. But when you understand how strong this can be and how it can affect the fish, I'm going to, on this display here, if you picture these two blue or green circles, whichever they look like to you, as 100 gallons, and you put that little white dot, that represents 1 drop of water, okay, in 100 gallons. Well, that's pretty minuscule, but the one on the left now, that separated looks like a pie, that divides that drop into 200 equal pieces. Now, okay, so you got a channel cat sitting in a 100-gallon tank, and you divide 1 drop of water or 1 drop of scent into 200 pieces and drop that in the corner of that tank. That cat will know that that scent is there. That's incredible. 2/100ths of 1 drop of scent. Now, how's that translate for you as a fisherman? We're going to, real quick, it doesn't mean, it's not a long distance call. It's not going to call cats in that 200th part, you know, from long distances. But what happens is when those fish come up and they're bumping your bait, they're testing your bait, they're tasting your bait to see what they want to do with it. If there's a scent there that's toxic to them, well, that fish may not take it. Or even if he picks it up, if it doesn't taste right, he may just spit it out. Okay, so it's important to watch your scents. If you do, it will get you that 1 extra bite. It might even get you the big fish of the day. But also pay attention to not getting bad scents or tastes on your hands when you're baiting up for these fish, because it will cost you fish in the long run. Okay, that's enough of that. Okay, Roger, we can go on to the next one here.
All right, let's get started there.
There you go. Oh, no, yeah, that'll work. We're on track. Okay, channel cats. We're going to talk, well, quite a bit about baits. And I'm probably going to bore some of you because we're going to cover all the baits. This will be like Baits 101 all the way to Master Class. Okay, we're going to talk about some prepared baits and some fixes for prepared baits, presentations and locations, obviously. Some of the locations and some of that structure talk you have heard from me before, but I'm going to repeat it for those that have already heard it and those that haven't, because it's really important. Okay, and also, you know, did you know that the channel cats in the state of Kansas, Missouri, Nebraska, and Tennessee, that's the state fish? That kind of tells you how that works. Yeah, or at least it was. I don't know if it still is anymore, but when I was looking that up a few years ago, that was the state fish in those states.
No kidding.
Okay. Yep. We'll go. Yeah. Yep. We'll go to the next one. And this one, you know, I basically give these in South Dakota, so it says South Dakota, but channel cats are all over the country. You know, we know it. And most people that fish catfish, most actually, first cat they probably caught could have been a channel cat. You know, they very seldom start on flatheads, and normally not blues, although there are a lot of waters with smaller blues in it too. But channels are really kind of the cat that's spread all over the country. really accessible. It occupies all kinds of different bodies of water, you know, and it will usually cooperate for you even during the day. I'm going to talk a little bit about that real quick. I went fishing today, by the way, and we're going to get into the baits, but this is just kind of a buildup. I went down, and it was just literally to put my butt on a bucket and my boots in the mud. I ended up sitting on a bridge, under a bridge, because it was just so hot. Sun was out, everything else. I had a 4-inch live bluegill out for about 3 hours, didn't get touched. I had a nice piece of cut bait out, didn't get touched. I did switch to a prepared bait, which I do carry. Okay, don't hold it against me, but I do, just because, you know. Anyway, I put on a rubber worm, the whole thing, did the dip bait. I had 4 2-pound channel cats in about an hour and a half. That's all I'm going to say. But they were small cats. And we'll get into all that and why that happens as we go down here. Anyway, that was middle of the day. That was about 1 o'clock this afternoon, 93 degrees and sunny. Okay. But the big fish were not cooperating, obviously. It wasn't quite the right time of day for them. There's a reason the small fish would have been biting and the big fish not. And that's just a numbers game. And you got to play that if you want to catch fish all the time. Okay. There's a lot more small fish in the body of water than there are big fish. That's just the way it is. Those fish have a lot of competition for food. They spend a lot of time chasing each other away from food and trying to run away from each other when they got food in their mouth. So the small fish will bite more often, like on an all-day thing, than the bigger fish. Okay, just the way it is. It's a numbers game. Okay, and like anything, I talk about this, and this is an example also. When you go channel cat fishing, you got to decide what you want. Do you want a big channel? You know, you want a 20-pounder? You want a 25-pounder? Well, you have to pick a body of water that has those. Okay. Now up here, I'm going to be honest. We have a river, got a lot of channel cats in it. But if you catch a 5-pound channel cat, I'm talking honest, 5 pounds on a scale, for that river, that's a big fish. 30 miles away, we have another river the same size. Most of the tournaments, the bigger channel cats that come in will be between 12 and 16 pounds. You know, 2 different bodies of water. You have to pick. You have to know what you want. You want fryers? You want just some time on the water? Do you want a big fish? Like any species, you have to pick your body of water. And your bait. And we're going to get into that as we go. Okay. You have to pick high percentage structures. And this is where I get into stuff I've already talked about a little bit. But channel cats are the same as any other fish. They have elements in the body of water. Roger, we can switch over here. Thank you. Perfect. Yep. They like a little different elements than some of the other fish. And I'll give you an example of some personal experience here that I was taught really well a number of years ago. I used to go down to Santee in South Carolina and fish blue cats quite a bit with some people that I know down there. I used to stay at Black's Camp, fished a few tournaments down there. And we found out down there, and I also found out on Milford in Kansas, that the channel cats were running about 10 foot shallower than the blue cats. Now, I don't know if that's every lake or reservoir, you know, in the country, but when we were finding, you know, the blue cats in the bay mouths off the clam beds and stuff, you know, in 25, 30 foot of water, as soon as we hit 15 foot of water, we were into channel cats. So just something to think about. I don't know if that's all over, but on those 2 bodies of water, several times, that's what we found. About 10 foot shallower than the blue cats were. Anyway, elements in the lakes and rivers. Current lines, obviously, just like any other fish. But I think channel cats are even more susceptible to following the channel lines and the current lines. I really do. The flatheads will kind of veer off of that for the structure, and the channels really hug the current lines. If you're on a reservoir and you don't have a current, you know, any wind will create somewhat of a current. We've talked about that. You fish the wind side of a lake. If it's been there for a few days, if it hasn't, you got to find out which direction it was dominant for a couple days ahead of time. Bridge pilings. Channel cats do like cover, but again, I think they like cover a lot closer to the main current. They do not have to be in the main channel. If you got rising water, like some people south of us do now, they had a terrible storm down there. You get rising water where the current's coming up, you get a little debris in there. Channel cats will move to the elements closer to the bank. When the water drops, they're going to move back to the channels. Okay. Middle of the day, the little fish again will pick up an aggressive situation where they're, say, bank side of the heavy current. The bigger fish are going to go more to a staging area where they're going to just lay tight, probably a deeper hole for a channel cat. On a flathead, I wouldn't say that. Flathead, I would look for cover. I don't care if it's 4 foot of water, I'd look for cover. A channel cat, though, he's going to look for a hole. He's going to look for some deeper, quiet water. That's his type of staging structure. Obviously, if you can put it close to the main channel and you can put it close to the current, that's just, adding element to element. It'll make it a better staging area for the daytime. Weed lines on lakes and old road beds on reservoirs are great for channels, points. A lot of people avoid the weeds. They don't even think about it when they're fishing cats. For channel cats, I look for weed lines. The deep side of the weed line, towards the center of the lake. If you've had a wind coming into that weed line and you're in a boat and you can run your trolling motor or across the front of that, some slow trolling and stuff, you will pick cats up right off the front end of that weed line. And it doesn't have to be deep. It really doesn't. But that there again, channels have a different diet. They eat anything, and that's not a bad thing. But I mean, when it gets stirred up on the front of a weed line, and you got snails, you got leeches, you got crawdads, and minnows and everything else, those channel cats, that's a smorgasbord for them.
Yeah.
That's like, I don't know, Red Lobster saying free food for me. I can take care of that. Channels like drop-offs, we were just talking about that, a deeper hole, more of a day type of thing. When I find like a bay mouth where I have shoulders coming out and it cups down, it's going to be deeper, I will troll back and forth point to point until I find the depth they're holding. If you go up on top of a point, it might be 6 foot deep. And right in front of that bay, it might be 30 foot deep. And then you go up on the other shoulder, it goes back up to 12. Once you find where they are, I mean, that's really easy. You've got all kinds of fish working that bay mouth. And they're going to go back up in there to that feeding platform. They're going to go back out to deep water, and they're going to work those points. The points are just really great references. You go back and forth off the shoulders. And when you find the depth, then you stick with it. And that's how, like down in Santa Cooper, we found the channels basically 10 foot shallower than the blue cats. So at that time, we avoided it, because they were messing with our bait. But if you're looking for them, then we would have stayed up in that 15, 16 foot water instead of the 25 foot water, because we could have caught channels all day. So, and nice fish. Log jams, yes, channel cats do like structure like that as well. But the closer to the main current or main current line coming around the ends of them is what they're looking for. And I would fish the current line and the point of that log jam. That's your connection point for these fish, in my opinion. Okay, next one. Structures. And I know I've talked to everybody about this before, but it's incredibly important. It works. When you're picking structures for these fish, you need structures with 3 elements. Now for channels, it would be a little different than what I'm looking for flatheads. Okay, flatheads, I would want definitely big old wood involved. I would want some quieter water involved. I wouldn't be that worried about the main channel, but I would want some deeper water, close by. But if I'm talking channels, I want the current hitting part of that log jam, like one end of it. I want the main line, I want a current line on one end of that log jam. That's almost like a prerequisite. Those fish want that. I would fish not necessarily into the logs, but I would fish the front line, obviously, where when you pull up to a big log jam, guys, if you look at it, and the water will come up. If one end is on the line on the bank, the current will come up to the front, and it will plow like right into the middle and then break off towards the center of the river. That's the way the current's going to go. If you can get your bait right where that current is breaking off to the center, okay, those fish will sit right there, and they will be in front of the log jam, not necessarily in it. Flatheads, I'd say you're going to have to put your bait inside the logs somehow, vertically probably, okay, especially during the day. All right, structures with less than this. We've got some pictures here. I think we've gone over them, but the one bottom right here with the riprap showing, that's really kind of a neat little channel structure right there. We don't have any wood involved, but we got the main channel, like I said, coming on and button right off the nose of that riprap. And we've caught some nice channels off of that. It's not a big structure, but it is a structure. You know, structure's not limited by size. It can be as big as your living room, or it can be, 10 miles long. It doesn't matter. This is a little structure. We don't fish it for hours and hours, but we'll pull in there and we'll take 2, 3, 4 fish, and then we'll leave. But there's always a couple fish sitting right here, and they'll be right off the point, generally right off the point of that riprap, right between there and that current line. And that's right exactly where everything washes in. That's where all the food gets delivered for these fish. So it makes it pretty easy. Okay, next one. Current is the biggie. I keep saying that, and I'll keep saying it. Current positions fish in any body of water and any kind of fish just because it moves food, okay? And it usually designates where the channel's going to be and everything else. And these cats are really, well, let's just say they're very susceptible. If you look at the structure on the left, if you saw the flathead seminar where that rock is up there and that quiet water right there, I would be fishing that quiet line if I was fishing flatheads. If I'm fishing channels, however, I'm going to go to the corner on the right where that current meets. You can see a little bit of foam out in front, and the current line goes to the right of it. Right down in here, I would fish that current line rather than this quiet water on the front of the rock. Flatheads, I go to the quiet water. Channel cast, I would go to this current line. It's just the way it works. And then, of course, you adjust your baits also. Flatheads would probably be a nice live bait. Channel cats would be something else. And we'll cover that. Okay, next one. Like always, I'm just going to tell you, just please look at what the water has to offer you. This one is a good example, this log jam. It shows you a lot of things, and most people don't take the time to look at any structure, even the ones I've shown you before. This log jam touches the bank, and you can tell there's some buildup on the left side of this. There's not much current here, but when there was current, that's what, like in the spring, that's what brought these logs together. It put a break in the center of this, and it laid out the tree over the channel on the right side. So, especially when there's very little current, and I know you know this, Roger, too, when there's very little current, when you get a neck down, that's where the current is going to be the greatest, okay? Yep. And these cats are drawn to those currents. So this funnel area in the middle, even though there's very little current anywhere, if there's any current, it's going to be shooting through there. Okay, it's going to be concentrated, and those fish will come up into that, and they will hunt that current line right there. Okay, so you have to look at that. The rest of this for channel cats is pretty boring, frankly. To the left, to the right, you have the channel. But also any of the remaining current is going to scoot around that end. So that's where your 2 points of current are going to be, whatever current there is. So you'd want to find, where is my current line, my main current lines. And on this one, that would be your 2 points. That's where I'd put up 2 baits right there. Okay, for channels. Flats are different. We aren't doing them. Baits, this is the fun part. Some guys are going to bite their tongues and not like me a lot right now. We're going to talk about some prepared baits, which you have. And I know some people, they don't catch fish. Well, they do. I caught 4 fish today on prepared baits because they wouldn't take anything else. but there is a difference. Okay. Okay. Now in prepared baits, you've got all kinds of different choices. Okay. And that's up to, you know, whatever you want to use. You have, you know, punch baits, which like have fibers in them, so you can just poke a regular treble hook down in it and pull it back out, and it's just a glob of stuff. You have dip baits that will work with rubber worms, which are probably the most common. Some will come in chunks. All right. You know, you have also like a dough, which you can mold around a treble hook with a spring on it, as an example. There's some things you need to know if you're going to use prepared baits, though. First off, they do catch channel cats. I'm just going to say it flat out, they do. And I do carry one in my car, just because if I don't have bait and I want to go fishing, I got something I can just go sit there and play with some fish with. Okay, it's just that simple. It doesn't go bad and it doesn't die. However, as a rule, these baits are going to catch you smaller fish, and there's a reason. It's not because they're bad, it's just they're different. You have, like we talked earlier, the smaller fish are way more competitive. Okay, and they have smaller mouths, but they're way more competitive. There's just a lot more of them. So they cannot be that picky. They have to eat when they can and when there's something there. These baits are usually made out of like a cheese processing situation, which is simply a protein. Okay, that's all it is. It's a protein. Cut baits have protein. Chicken has protein. Everything, all the meats have protein, and that's what those little fish are zeroing in on. They don't smell it. It doesn't smell bad to them like it does us. It's just the protein content. There are amino acids, however, involved. You know, when you're talking what type of bait are they going to use, what I'm getting at here is you can enhance these baits in a couple of ways. If you want to use prepared baits, you can go on Amazon, you can go to health stores, and you can buy the exact amino acids that are in fish meat. Okay, you can buy glucosamine, you can buy alanine, you can buy glycine, and you can buy arginine. All of those are the amino acids that the fish find in fish. Okay, that's a channel cats are tasting when they bite into a fish. However, I don't know if you guys are familiar with what they used to call the Nebraska boys that used to fish tournaments using coagulated blood. Okay, that's just another situation. You could call that a prepared bait. We used to prepare that in our refrigerators, you know, and that would put out protein and amino acids. If I want to really pump up a prepared bait and make it more natural to give me an opportunity to get up to that 10-pound class with them, I use this. And you have to buy this from generally a weird food store. This is dehydrated powdered blood, 100% blood. I will put that in a dip bait and allow it to dissolve. Just put it in and let it stay. It won't go bad on it. It just gets better.
Where in the world do you find that, Ted?
It's in an apothecary. It's like it's a food substance. This is for making like blood pie and whatever. Just weird recipes. It is dehydrated blood, absolutely blood, no additives, just dehydrated. I wouldn't recommend eating it, but it is food. It is a food product.
Does it say what animal that's from?
This is beef.
Beef, okay.
Yep, and it will also like thicken up your bait. It makes your dip baits really sticky, sticky.
I got you.
And in my opinion, it just makes it a little more attractive to the fish better. That's what I caught mine at 4 on today that I couldn't get bites for 4 hours with cut bait and live bait, and I caught 4 in an hour and a half on that. Okay, so but if I'm fishing live bait, I'm going for bigger fish. Okay. Ooh, one more thing about the prepared baits. If you get a prepared bait that's runny on you, any of those baits can get runny in the heat. Okay. They like melt down. If that happens, you want to add flour to it. It's just white kitchen flour. And some of this will help you out too. It'll thicken it right back up. Okay. If it gets too thick on you, don't add water, put a raw egg in it. Okay, if you have water, raw egg, just crack a raw egg in it and stir it up. If it dries out on you, you know, A lot of
Right.
people keep prepared baits from year to year, which you can do. It doesn't,
Right.
go bad. But if it dries out to where it's not working right, just break a raw egg in it and stir that in there and let it sit for a day. Okay, and that will bring the moisture back in. And all you're doing then is adding raw proteins
Right.
right into that bait. You're making it more natural. The other thing about the prepared baits people need to think about, and nobody really ever talks about it, the stiffer the bait. Let's take an example. You have a dip bait. Okay, that dip bait's going to rub off fast, going to wear off fast. It's going to put out scent really fast also. Okay, you take the little ball, the dough balls that have come and they're hard, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
In cooler water, they just don't dissolve. Those would be just like a hot water situation, or you're not going to get any scent dispersal. Okay. Personally, I use a punch bait or a dip bait when I use a prepared bait. Now for cut bait, now this is where we're looking for a little bigger fish, obviously, as big as they come, hopefully. Up here, we can't use a lot of things. We can't use carp up here. We can't transfer live shad. We're kind of limited, so we use bluegills. I like green-eared sunfish for just about everything I do, and cut baits,
Mm-hmm.
Cut suckers we can do. I don't, wherever you are, shad. If I could use shad and get a hold of shad, I would probably use shad for channel cats all the time. But up here, it's very rare, and you can't, they don't want you transporting it, and then we can't take bait out of the rivers, and there's just some stuff that kind of prevents us from getting a hold of it, But that's up to you. It's whatever fits you. But when I cut a bait, I do it there's two ways I'll cut a bait. It depends what I'm doing. If I'm fishing on the shore, I'm going to take the fish, lay him on the board. I'm going to cut the head off. I'm going to cut the tail off, and I'm going to cut the main body section into 2 or 3 or 4 parts, depending on how big a fish or how big a bait I need, or how big this fish was to start with. It might be size of a double peanut, or it might be the size of a ping pong ball, or the size of my palm. It just depends what I want to do with it. If I'm like drifting, bumping, trolling, I'm going to butterfly him. Okay, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fillet knife, and I'm going to lay him on his side, and I'm going to fillet one side down, but not cut it off. I'm going to take it down just like I was going to fillet him from the head to the tail, but leave about 1.5 inches of connection on the tail. Okay, then I'm going to cut the head off, and I'm going to cut the tail fin off. I'll hook this through the tail, and I'll leave that butterfly open. Is what that does is open up the center part of that fish. Okay, the gut cavity gets all opened up, but it holds together. Okay, because you just didn't cut the ties, but
Mm-hmm.
it opens the whole thing up. If I use that bait for a half an hour, I'll open up the other side just like that, and it freshens it right back up for you. I will keep the head and I will keep the tail, just because a lot of times I run out of bait, that kind of thing. If it's a big fish, like a bigger bluegill, and I might cut the whole fillet on one side off, and then I would just keep the head and that fillet and the tail for use later. Also, with cut bait, do not let it get wet. I see people that throw it in the cooler on ice. I see people that,
Yep.
that they're carrying the bait, in a Tupperware, whatever, and it's got water in it, and they cut the bait and they throw the rest back in the Tupperware. Do not let them get in the water. It just totally dissolves everything you want out. It bleeds the fish out. It destroys the slime. If anything, I have a little cooler. You know how some of these coolers have little baskets that fit
Mm-hmm.
in the top? Okay. I have ice in the bottom, and I have my bait fish in plastic bags on ice, the whole fish. When I cut them, what I don't use goes in that rack.
Yep.
Okay. It stays dry. It does not go back in the bag. It does not go on ice. It stays in the cooler, but it goes in the rack. That way that slime dries on, everything hardens up for you then. And when you hit the water with it, it will stay there until it gets down to the bottom, and then it will slowly disperse for you. It just lasts a lot longer.
Right.
Okay. There's also another way to expand or extend your life with a bait like this. And I didn't think this up. This was, well, I believe, I could be wrong, I believe it was in Catfish Fever with Doug Stange and Toad Smith when they said there's two kinds of suckers. Okay, so this is not transparency. I didn't think this one up. But they said there's two kinds of suckers. There's a live sucker and there's a stomped sucker. And they're right. If you use a piece of cut bait for, say, 20 minutes, half hour, which I do, by the way, I change my bait basically every 20 minutes or a half hour, or I freshen it up. If I have a piece of cut bait, it's been out there 20 minutes, nothing's touched it, it's still there, I'll bring it in, I'll put it on a clean cutting board, I'll lay another clean board on it, and I'll put two hands on it and just slam it. It opens up all kinds of cells. It completely reopens all that bait that has never touched the water. You basically have a fresh piece of bait for another 20 minutes. So if you're running low on bait, you know, you can extend that piece just by crushing it. And I'm not talking, you know, turning it into a pancake. Just break it open. When you push down, you'll hear it. You'll feel it break. You know, all the cells will just break open. That just is releasing everything you want, all brand new. So you can extend your bait. Live bait. For channels up here, if I'm looking for big channels, like 10 pounds and up channels, I'm going with basically either a green ear or a bluegill, about 4 to 6 inches long. Okay, live. Our big channels up here, they love live bait, and the small channels just don't bother that. I mean, you know, like the 1.5 pound channels just don't bother a 4 or 6 inch bluegill up here. They just don't. So that's my big bait fish. And for up here, crick chubs would probably be, crick chubs up here for channel cats would probably be one of the best baits there is, a live crick chub. Then I would go back to the green ear, which is my favorite bait for flatheads, and then a bluegill. But boy, I'll tell you, a crick chub up here, channel cats will rip them up. I don't know how it is on other bodies of water, but they love them up here. The only problem with a crick chub for me is they are harder to keep alive than the green-eared sunfish. Green-eared sunfish are pretty tenacious. They're just pretty nasty.
They're tough.
Yeah, they are. And you know, I like them because when they're in the water, you know, a lot of times your rod tip's doing this.
Yeah.
And it's just your bait doing exactly what you want him to do.
Oh yeah, they ain't got no quit in them.
Yep. And then a couple tips about live bait, and I've given them before. If I'm fishing structure or cover or open water and I got bait that's really too active, I will cut the tail fin off, or part of it, half of it anyway, just to take his propeller away, slow him up a little bit so he can't be dragging everything around and getting underneath and running away from the fish that's trying to eat him. You know, I will also, like on a live bait, and I said this with the flathead seminars, I will scrape some scales on the back end of that fish and open up and let those amino acids come out.
Right.
And, you know, because especially you got a swimming tongue here, I guess, you know, the channel cat, and they are. That will tell that channel cat that this fish is injured. He's an easy meal. He's something I want to eat. And he will hit it harder, I believe. I also believe it will get a fish to possibly, which is the big thing, when he hits it, take it in deeper, like inhale it instead of just mouth it. And if he inhales it, your chances of hooking up, well, are just a whole lot better, you know?
Right.
Yep. Okay. These are just the rigs and some hooks. We kind of covered the baits. On the top, you guys all know it, but I had seminars this weekend and I had some kids in there that didn't. So maybe we got some there now. This slip rig, real simple. And you guys all know it, but for those of you that don't, this is what you're going to use probably 95% of the time, unless you're in a boat and you're drifting or trolling. But even then, you can use this rig, and all you have to do is add a little peg float to it, a little styrofoam peg float to the middle of this leader, and that will give you basically like a Carolina rig. It'll pick you up off the bottom a little bit, and it'll work. The only thing I would change if I was fishing is I'd put probably, you know, a no snag or low snag walking sinker up in the front of this, and I'd have a longer leader. Leader length on it, I like a short leader and heavy cover, just so it doesn't get snagged up as bad. And I want a longer leader in open water so the fish can pick it up and turn around on you and get going a little bit easier, and that just increases your hookups.
What do you consider a short leader and a long leader inchwise?
Yep. Basically, I would consider a short leader 8 to 10 inches.
Okay.
You know, that like if I'm a heavy cover, especially with like a live bait, I don't want him getting out and getting under the branches or under the rocks or whatever. I want him pegged to the ground a little bit. You lose a couple of hookups sometimes that way because the fish, you know, he's restricted by the sinker weight. You know, even if you got a bait release or a clicker on there, he's still restricted a little bit. When they open their mouths to take in a bait, that is basically like a suction. There's a suction there, a vacuum kind of thing. And on a short leader, that bait just doesn't fly up quite as nice. You know, if you've got an 18-inch leader and that fish gets up over the top and he opens his mouth to suck it in, that fish can move up, you know, and it gets inhaled a little better. But if you're going to just continually lose your bait or snag up, it doesn't do you any good either, you know. So you got to kind of adjust it. If I'm drifting or trolling, I might extend that leader out to about 3 feet. But you know, and then like cut bait, maybe a foot, 14, 15 inches. Live bait, it will depend on what I'm fishing. Open water, I'll go out to 18 inches open water. If I'm close to cover, it just gets shorter the heavier the cover is. And of course, you know, your hook adjusted to your size of fish and bait, obviously, you know, that just kind of takes some practice. Sinker weight. I'm kind of bullish on sinkers. When I put a sinker on, it's there to do a job, and that's to peg that bait. It really is. It's to anchor that bait so he goes where I put him and he stays there. Obviously, unless I'm drifting or trolling, but then it's still the same thing. I want it on the bottom. I want to know where the bait is all the time. I don't want too light a sinker where if I drop off a ledge or off a point to where that bait becomes airborne, you know. And I don't use big floats on my Carolina rigs for channel cats. Okay, for blue cats I'll use a bigger float. For channel cats I use a smaller float because I want that bait. If you picture a minnow or a bait fish going across the bottom, he touches the bottom, he comes up, he touches the bottom, he comes up. He's not up here. He's doing this. And I try to adjust my floats. I want the sinker to hold the whole rig down, but I adjust my float to where that bait is just floating, bumping the bottom and coming up and bumping the bottom and coming up for channel cats. For blues, I'll go a little bigger. I want to pick it up a foot or two off the bottom as a rule, if I can. But anyway, the channel cats like it that way. It seems to me. At least I like it better that way. So that's what I do, you know. Okay.
Justin's trying to tell me here. I run some really long leaders at times, up to 6-7 foot.
Yep.
Just depending on what the conditions are, but yeah, I run some long ones.
Yep. Well, and you sure can. Yeah. When you're you know, if you're trolling or drifting and you need it out there like that, or you want to get height on it for suspended fish or whatever, yeah, absolutely. Other than that, I don't go over 3 or 4 feet. I really, you know, I just don't. Even for blues, I don't, unless I want to. Well, I just don't. 3, you know, I was trying to get along there, but I just don't. 3 to 4 feet will be about max. I'll adjust my float to give me more lift if I want it. Or less float if I want it to drop, but I really don't go any longer than that. I just don't. I just let it now with 3 or 4 feet.
At the time, Ohio was a 2-rod limit, but we could put 3 hooks per line. So what I was doing when I was dragging, I can only drag 2 rods, and so I would run 3 hooks on a line, and so I ran it 6-7 foot long to get 3 hooks on there to maximize my bait in the water.
That's a different deal. That's a whole different rig like that then. That I'd agree with, Roger. I can see that one.
I figure I at least have to try to explain myself a little bit.
Well, you don't have to explain yourself to anybody. You do. You know, that's the thing about fishing too, guys. There's nothing that's an absolute. You know, different water, different fish, and what you like to do is, what you like to do is what you're comfortable doing, and what you have confidence in is actually more important than anything I tell you. If you have confidence in this rig or that bait, use it. Because if you have confidence in what you're using, guys, you're just going to fish better. You just are. Just like if I'm doing something that I don't like to do, I know I'm not fishing the best because I'm not paying attention, and I know I'm not doing it right. If I like it, well, you just do better. You just do.
Yeah.
So the only absolute is if the fish can't find you, you can't get bit. That's the absolute.
That's true.
Well, you not only won't get bit, you can't get bit. And that's where the structures and the presentations are that's the bottom line. It's a numbers game. The more you present to properly, the more bites you're going to get. Think about presentation. Don't think about catching fish, because the presentation will take care of catching if you do it right. Okay, one more secret about bait. We'll go to this next slide, Roger, if you would. Yep. Okay. There's a secret about using shrimp that most people don't know.
Ooh.
In this picture, on the right-hand side, you have 2 shrimp that, first off, never use cooked shrimp. It's always raw shrimp, and I use it in the shell. Okay? Nothing that's already been shelled. The stuff on the right is how it comes when it's frozen and you thaw it out. It's usually just kind of a gray color, and it's raw and whatever. And that will work. I mean, that'll catch you fish. But if you want to turn shrimp into something really good, you don't cook it, but you take the same shrimp, you lay it on a board, you put it out in the sun for 2 hours. When the shell turns pink like this, like they see in this picture, you don't want it to rot. You don't want to leave it for a whole day. You don't want to leave it for a week. All you want to do is have that muscle relax and have those cells open up. All it's done is create a liquid like seam around that entire shell and the meat of amino acids and body fluids and everything you want to have happening. It releases it from the inside of the body. It makes a mediocre shrimp turn into one heck of a channel cat bait. It really does. And most people don't do that. They take it out, and then you can freeze it. Now you've got it pink. Okay, the shell's turned pink. If you want to keep it, which I do, I mean, I'll do 2 pounds of shrimp at a time, and then I bag them up in dozens in a bag and throw them in the freezer. And they're fine. You thaw them out and they're ready to go. And that pink shell will outcatch that other shell like 3 to 1. I'll guarantee it. It opens up the scent on that shrimp. The fish just attack them. And you'll catch them the other way. They're fresh. It's a fish. It's a shrimp. They'll eat it. But boy, you get that water layer, that moisture level between that shell and the meat on that shrimp, and you've got a piece of bait. And then the only thing you got to watch, you thread the shrimp on just like you would a night crawler, kind of just thread it right through the loop, okay, around the curve in the hook. Just make sure you don't have a like part of the shell on your hook point, because you'll never penetrate it on a hook set. And then I will squeeze the tail right at the head of the tail. I'll squeeze that, and with that moisture there, about half of that shell will just pop off up by the point of your hook. Okay. And then just make sure your hook point's clean, obviously. But that, and it doesn't take anything to do it. You don't have to worry about flies. You don't have to worry about anything. Just put it in the sun, let it sit there for 2-3 hours, and you can judge it. When it turns pink like this, it's done. That's it.
Are you taking it out of the bag, or are you leaving it in the bag?
I take them out of the bag and I lay them out on the board. Yep. There you go. I lay them out one layer on the board. Yep. And then you can throw them right back in baggies. Then I separate them up, and refreeze them until I want them. But then it's all done. And then it's a good bait. Then it is a good bait. It's a lot different. Okay, next one. Yeah, and I think we're getting down to just about brass tacks here, which is good. High percentage elements for channel cats. We covered some of it. We're just going to do a little bit of a re-look here. The current line on channel cats. If there's anything on a river that I would want like on flatheads, I'll go, okay, I want some wood in that structure. And a current line is a plus, but not necessary. For channel cats, I want a structure that has that current line on it. I want the current line to touch that structure somehow, because that's just your highway for those fish. It really is. Riprap and washouts. Again, the washout, like I said, when they go to a staging structure, the flatheads go to cover. They do. They just flat out go to cover. Channel cats are going to go more for a hole, more for deep, quiet water, whereas flatheads go for more of the cover type thing with quiet water. Okay, and the washout, well, it's going to be probably near the current anyway. That's how it got washed out to begin with. But you want that current line to connect to that washout too for these fish. Okay, then the feeding platform. All fish have an area they like to feed in. And I already explained on this real quick, and I'll quit. But the flathead, I'd be over towards this rock on the left, up on the top. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Oh, I'm on a different one than you're on here. There you go. Go ahead one. Yep.
There we go.
There you go. Yep. Up on the rock on the left up here. That'd be flathead territory on that quiet rock front. Channel cat is going to be where that red arrow is, that red margin along that current line, and the current comes down to the right of that also. So there's the difference for the two species where I'm going to put my baits. Like at night, I'm going to put the channel cat bait on the red margin. I'd put the flathead over towards that rock a little more, a little quieter water. But both of them right up towards the base of those rocks, because that's where all the bait fish get stopped. The bait fish can't go anywhere from after that.
Right. It's a wall.
It's a wall. Yep. Okay, next one. Same thing here. We've seen this one before in that red margin, the current line on the staging structure. That's where I was talking about. I want a current line touching the front of the staging structures. Mm-hmm. And that's just a quiet, deeper hole. This one has some wood. This is like a nice flathead structure also that I use. But, okay, I think yep. Going to give you a tip here. We're down to the end. It's not a surprise, just some tips about the channel cats a little bit for those that may or may not. They do move more at night than they do during the day. All 4 seasons, that's just the fact. However, just like today, my fishing trip today, the big fish were not moving, but the little fish were. Okay, the smaller fish, the numbers are just greater. That's all there is to it. If you dumped out my river there'd be 2 million little channel cats below that dam, and there'd be 50 big ones. That's the difference. The little ones have to eat when they can. They have to stay active. They have to eat when they can. I think you could catch them all day. The big ones, like today, I've caught big fish out of there. They just weren't moving today. Also, okay, I already mentioned on the current, if the water's coming up, you're going to move closer to the bank. Even in a lake, if the water's coming up, they're going to go to the banks. They're going to go to the bays, because that's where the washout food is coming in. Mm-hmm. Okay, and on the river, it's just the same thing. They're going to move to the structures closer to the bank. When the water's falling, everything's going to move to the main channel. That's not just channel cats. That's pretty much everything. Now, channel cats, though, they did some research. This will be the close, and we'll do some questions if anybody has any. In the fall and spring, when they were tagging channels, this isn't mine, this is done by other people, but I'll pass it along. They found most channel cats hanging along riprap where it was available. That was fall and spring. And again, if you go, compare that to flatheads, the flatheads, they found all the bigger fish over 10 pounds were relating to wood. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now the channel cats in the fall and spring, they were finding them along riprap. I think this stuff has to do with maybe what type of forage is available at that time on that particular element. That's the only thing I could really figure out, but there's something. And in the winter, they're around sandy areas. Now that I can understand. I think that might be a bloodworm thing.
Warmth, yeah.
Yep. And then midsummer, clay banks. clay banks and bottoms. That's what they were, where they were finding the bigger channel cats, where they're available. Obviously, a lot of bodies of water, you don't have that. But in the bodies of water that had them, that's the season where they found the groups of channels. So
there you go, guys.
I thought that was pretty interesting. I kind of like that one. I've
Yeah.
tried to use it, and honestly, I think they're right. Well, and they found them. I mean, that's when they were tracking fish. You know, that's not like a iffy thing. When they were tracking them, that's where they were finding them. So
yeah, when they've got
so that'll do it.
Yeah, when they've got the data to back it up, it's not just it's not just hearsay or.
Yeah, that's just it. When I get reports like that where it was tested, where those fish were tracked, I pay attention to it because regardless of what I think, that's what happened.
Yeah, that's science. That's kind of where I like to stick around. Is I like the nerd side of stuff, like the how and why, the scientific side of things, because I can make sense of it. Because otherwise, I'm just trying to figure out, just put together hypotheses and different, strategy scenarios. But
yeah, there's differences between opinions and facts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I did see a question here from Jody. Now this is off topic. But
that's okay.
I know what she's dealing with. She's dealing with a ton of grass
in the water.
Yep.
Okay.
She says, do you have any strategy with dealing with grass, stationary grass you cast into, or what the current brings into your line? So she's getting frustrated with the grass coming down through like the Tennessee River.
So you got some high water and you got garbage floating around on you is what you got. Yeah. Is what I would do. The less line you put out, the better. Obviously, if you can fit. Okay, if you're in your pontoon and you're throwing out, if you throw out 30 yards of line, you just created a huge target for line to catch you. If you can use a braid line and drop vertical or closer to vertical, braid line will hold it less. It will. Yeah. It's slippery. It'll come around it and drop off a little more. You're never going to get away from all of it. If it's in the water, right. It's in the water. And if you're vertical, you only have, we'll say 30 feet or 25 foot of line compared to 30 yards of line out. So you're picking up less. The thing with grass in the water like that, the more line you have, the more individual grass pieces you pick up, and it all ends up down by your bait.
Yeah, it slides right down the line.
Yep, it goes right down the line. So the less line you can put out, the longer you'll get away with, without it. Also, if you watch the surface, we have that up here too. Like this spring, we had a couple of weeks that were just terrible with junk floating down the water. And a lot of times, if you just watch the current patterns, you can see where that stuff's going. A lot of times you can't do that, but a lot of times you can. If you move over 15 feet or whatever, one way from the current line or the other, you might be able to eliminate some of it.
Jody, we fished down there a few times and had to deal with that grass floating down through there as well. I don't know how comfortable you are, how you do suspend drifting, but I did a lot better drifting with the grass than trying to sit stationary and try to fight it. So that would be a great option, in my opinion, to float with the grass. Now, you're still going to get some of it in your line. But you don't end up with it as big as a mess and a headache as you're dealing with. But she's dealing with a lot of it coming. I mean, it's through the entire water column.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's grass. Grass is just releasing and coming down the Tennessee River.
Well, so you can move with it. Good point. Yeah. Excellent. Move with it. Yeah.
Yeah, for us that was the easiest way to deal with it, was to go with it. But to Ted's point, obviously the less line you put, because that's what we do in the wintertime. So, if you're fishing in a situation where you're bringing in tons of leaves and debris and everything every time you cast, well, for one, we try to find areas that aren't doing that, because catfish don't want to sit there and get pelted in the head, in the face with debris, and they're going to try to hide behind a rock, but it's going to be hard to pick out food in the midst of all that. And they're going to try to move off the areas that are not getting completely disintegrated with debris. But the technique, like Ted said, is to go with short line. Don't put very much line out because that's just a large target.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but drifting with it, Roger, that's very good. Good point. Obviously.
I've learned.
Yep.
She says I'm learning. Yeah, see, Pontoon Jody is not a Pontoon Jody anymore. She's got a different boat now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she's got a
congratulations.
Yeah, she's got a center console. I can't remember the name of it. I think it's like a California, or not a California, but one of the skiff boats.
Okay.
I think that's about like what she's got. Cabela's King Cat this weekend, Gal Bliss. I forgot all about that. Stonefly.
Well, I think a center console would be kind of nice. You can move around it, Yeah.
So I used to think the same thing. I always thought center console would be the way to go. When I bought my boat, it was a center console. And I don't fish alone a lot. Well, my health issues and stuff, I don't fish alone. So the seating was terrible. I had to share my seat with somebody, or had to set up a second seat somewhere. And then you lose that maneuverability, because now there's a chair in the way or somebody's sitting on a bucket. So I was like, unless you fish by yourself, which Jody does fish a lot by herself, so it's probably fits her perfectly. But for me, it didn't pan out. I had to actually end up when I redid the whole boat, I moved it was Carolina skiff. I was saying California. Definitely not California skiff.
Wrong part of the country.
Yeah, other coast. Yeah, Carolina skiff, 2020 Carolina skiff. I think she's got a 140 Suzuki on it, so she's set up pretty nice right there. But yeah, learning to drift and go with that stuff makes it, man, just takes a lot of headache out. I mean, you'll still run into some issues, of course, but until that grass settles down, that's probably your most efficient way to get through it. Aaron Grubbs in the house. What's up, guys? Keep TED Talk coming. Love listening to a fellow flathead guy. There you go.
Yeah.
Aaron Grubb, man, he's a kayak angler, man. He travels all over the country fishing with these guys. Those guys are hardcore. I got major respect for those guys that get in the kayaks, man, and go out there. My back hurts just watching them from home. Yeah,
it'd be fun having the nose of your boat get turned around in circles. That'd be kind of nice.
Yeah, being towed upriver, by a fish.
Yep. That'd be worth it.
I took all the seats out of it. I want to set it down. I will take she took all the seats out. If she wants to sit down, I'll take out the pontoon, she said. It's got a 90 Suzuki. I knew it had a decent Suzuki on it. I just couldn't remember which one. But you guys got anything else for Ted? Last week we did cover we went over the Flathead, the seminar. We were going to try to do like just a Q&A this week on that, but because we had this already set up and ready, and I was afraid we wouldn't run into a whole hour long's worth of comment, because we did take some questions last week as well. We decided to go ahead and do tonight's Channel Cat seminar. And now if you guys got questions either pertaining to the seminar tonight or the Channel Cats or last week's Flathead seminar, you guys are more than welcome to throw some questions our way. We're in no hurry to head out just yet. So we got a few more minutes to stick around if you guys got something for us. But otherwise, Stonefly, I forgot about the King Cat Gal Bliss this weekend. I'm so busy with everything going on. I can't keep up with where I'm supposed to be. I know I can't make it. We got the little man's birthday party this weekend. We got the party here at the house on Saturday, and then Sunday, everybody's going to Kings Island. So I won't be able to make that tournament. But what you got going on? You got the dog in there?
I do. Yeah, she's following me.
wanting Dad's attention.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you something a little bit about that, about your scent, the talk you had earlier. So those of you that were in the Iron Cat this weekend and kind of paid attention, I know for the most part, probably people were sick of hearing us say fish on, right? So we caught a lot of fish during the tournament. But when it came down to like the last hour, we had been catching fish on shad all day. I mean, all day long. If you put shad out, fish on. We were to the point where we were only putting one pole out, or we were putting like other baits on besides shad just to see what else they would eat. We didn't try chicken. And we got down to the last hour before the sudden death, and we couldn't catch a fish on shad. And we were surrounded by fish. I mean, the fish finder was blown up with not shad, catfish were all around us. And I said, you know what? Monster catfishing. He's in here a lot. Kevin Walters come up with this fish oil attractant that he calls hog juice. And it's just a blend of different fish oils of certain, whatever mixtures he's got of it, but it's his own blend. And I thought, I've got all these fish. I've got to throw something out there different. And so I got a piece of chicken out, and I put a few drops of that fish oil on it, and I cast it out, and I mean, boom, fish on. And we caught fish immediately. And that was the last fish we had to catch to get us into the sudden death. And we was like, I don't know what's going on. They stopped eating shad. I don't know why they would stop eating shad, but we have shad thrown out everywhere. We're not getting bit. And we switched everything over to chicken and put some of that oil on it. And well, you guys saw what happened. We caught a fish. We caught a fish on every rod. We went off air with fish on every rod, I think. But we ended up catching fish right away and winning the tournament. But all that water, all that scent, all that bait, all those fish, and I put a few drops of oil, fish oil, and it's a blend of shad oil, trout oil. I don't know what all's in it. It's just different blends of oils that he's come up with, and it hit the water. And I mean, I had fresh shad. I mean, how could they beat fresh shad? And but that oil hit the water, and I mean, I seen it hit the water, prior to using it that day, and it just rings of,
blue.
I was like, oh, okay.
Yep.
I can't believe someone would travel that far just to win a tournament. Come on, Brandon. I only drove 3 hours. How far did you drive to go down and fish with Jeremy? I think he was like, I think he got me beat by a little bit. But no, we had a really good time. Whether we won or not, we was having a blast up there catching fish. Not to toot our own horn, but we caught 115 catfish in a day. I mean, that's a
good day. That's a good day.
Yeah, I know Ted mentioned earlier, but me and Ted was messaging, and he's like, I was like, I am wore out. He's like, I don't know if you expect me to feel sorry for you, but you're not getting any sympathy.
Yeah, I don't feel sorry
over here. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
Yep. Yeah.
No, we had a great time. I love sharing that experience with Jackie. She got to experience what Sandusky Bay can be. But yeah, we had a great time with it. And so, and when you're taking advantage of it now, a lot of people's like, oh no, not Sandusky Bay. But what people don't realize is, this tournament series goes on all the way up until January, and the bay shuts down. So, I've never been fishing up at the bay past, I think, November. And so I'm not even sure what the fish do up there, if they move out into the deeper water or if they stay in that shallow water. Sandusky Bay, on average, most of the bays are like 6 to 8 feet deep.
Wow.
Now there is a deep channel that runs through the dead center of it, and it gets about 20-ish feet. But about the 90% of it, you're looking at 6 foot to 8 foot.
Yep.
At least in the area that we fish, the majority of the Sandusky Bay. Once you get over towards Cedar Point, you do run into the shipping lanes, and you get into 30-foot plus channels just for the shipping lanes. But outside of that, you're looking at some shallow water. I mean, we were fishing 2 feet of water there for a while.
Yep.
It's just crazy. And we were watching the fish. We didn't have to even really use the fish finder as much as we used our eyes. The fish were hammering shad on top of the water. It looked like when you experience white bass feeding, where it's on top and just splashing every. That's what we were watching. So we would just, when the bite died down, We just say, hey, the fish are over there. We just move the boat over a little bit and drop anchor and do it again. Huge feeding flat. Yeah, where we're at it's a big feeding flat. The wind was helping us out quite a bit with the way the wind was blowing. It was working in our favor. Like I said, we had no trolling motor, so we fished on anchor all day, which is not how we prefer to fish. So we got lucky with the wind, but yeah, it's a big feeding platform down through there. I can hear it down there just begging for attention.
Yeah, I'm still not feeling sorry for you, by the way.
Okay, well, I got sunburnt. You see me I've been digging up my shoulders.
Oh, now I feel bad for you. There you go.
Yeah, I had sunblock with me. I just did not take the time to put it on. Hey, Chrissy Brown's in the house. Thank you, Chrissy. Showing up, a member for 22 months, supporting the channel, man. Thank you guys so much. I really do appreciate that. It means a lot. Means a lot. Well, Ted, I'm going to let you get on out of here, man. We've enjoyed it. We've had several weeks back to back here, just really digging into the nitty gritty.
I appreciate it. I appreciate everybody checking into it, and I've had some nice messages from people, and I appreciate that. I just hope, over the last few weeks, somebody got some good ideas. That's what counts.
Absolutely. Yeah, Ted, we'll have to have you come back on when we get some. I know you're working on some other hot new stuff as well. So
yep.
When the time is right, we'll get you back on here anytime. Door's always open. You can come in there and talk catfishing anytime, man. That's what this show's about.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yep. Appreciate it.
Ted, thank you so much for your time again. Thank you guys for tuning in with us tonight. We'll catch you guys here back next week. Same cat time, same cat channel. Good night, everybody.